Hello, this is the news on NTA International. I am Charles Alpha. Our sign language interpreter is Precious Ozomene. And now the headlines. King Charles hosts Japan Emperor at the start of a 3-day state visit to the UK. Part of Kenyan Parliament on fire after protesters opposed new tax laws breach complex. And ministers restate present administration's commitment to free and responsible journalism through access to accurate information. We begin with the minimum wage. President Bola Tinubu is now to consult further with subnationals and other relevant stakeholders to come up with a sustainable new minimum wage. This is part of the decisions at the Federal Executive Council meeting concluded a while ago. At the State House, and the representatives of the government and private sector in the tripartite committee on new minimum wage had suggested a peg of 62,000 naira, which the organized labor rejected. Now, the Federal Executive Council has decided on a wider consultation by the President and other stakeholders to agree on acceptable benchmark.
Mr. President is going to consult further so that he can have an informed position, because the new national minimum wage, like I said, is not just an issue of the federal government. It affects the state governments, it affects the local governments, it also affects the organized private sector. And that is why it is called national minimum wage. It's not just an affair of the federal government. So he has studied the report and he's going to consult wider before a final submission is being made to the National Assembly.
We'll take you now to Kenya, where stone-throwing demonstrators scuffled with police who fired tear gas, rubber bullets, and water cannon to disperse thousands of mostly young people protesting proposed tax hikes in the capital, Nairobi. Francis Udojo reports that the rallies that began last week have caught the government off guard, with President William Ruto saying over the weekend he was ready to walk to the protesters.
But scuffles broke out on Tuesday in Nairobi as demonstrators threw stones at police, trying to prevent them from heading towards Parliament. Despite a heavy police presence, thousands of protesters marched through Nairobi's business district, pushing back against barricades as they made their way towards Parliament. Police in full rout gear fired tear gas and rubber bullets into the crowd as protesters gained ground in their push towards Parliament. Many were live streaming the action as they sang, chanted and beat drums. A situation that has now resulted in a fire outburst at the parliamentary arena. Anger over a cost of living crisis spiraled into nationwide rallies last week, with demonstrators calling for the finance bill to be scrapped. Francis Udojo, NT News.
And in Nigeria, government confirmed one of the world's biggest uranium mines had returned to public control after revoking the operating license of French nuclear fuel producer Orano. The company last week said it had been excluded from the Omoraren mine in northern Niger in a move that highlighted tensions between France and the West African countries' military rulers. The government had not reacted before releasing a statement on Monday saying the Omoraren mines had returned to the public domain of the state. The move came despite its recent resumption of activities at the site, which had been fulfilled in line with the government's wishes, according to Orano. The company added that it was prepared to keep open all channels of communications with authorities while reserving the right to contest the decision in national or international courts. The Moraren mine sites on an estimated 200,000 tons of uranium used by nuclear power and weapons. But development was frozen after the collapse in the world uranium prices following the 2011 Fukushima nuclear disaster in Japan. Nigeria's military rulers have vowed to review mining concessions in the country since taking power in July 2023 coup as part of its focus on national sovereignty. They have also broken ties with France, the former colonial power and traditional partner, and turned towards Russia, which is seeking to extend its influence in the region. Nigeria in 2022 accounted for about a quarter of the national uranium supply to European nuclear power plants, according to data from the atomic organization Euratom. And now Emperor Naruhito and Empress Masako of Japan have been received at Buckingham Palace by King Charles III, Queen Camilla, and the Prince of Wales. The ceremonial welcome marks the start of a 3-day visit to the UK, and Francis Udojo has now the details.
Also greeting the Japanese Emperor and Empress were Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, Foreign Secretary David Cameron, Home Secretary James Cleverly, and military top brass. State visits are a mix of Asian pageantry and modern international politics, with the red carpet being rolled out for important visitors. The visit by the Emperor and Empress is intended to reinforce military, scientific, and cultural links between the UK and Japan. It is the first by a Japanese head of state since 1998. It began with a formal royal greeting at First Guards Parade, followed by a procession to Buckingham Palace. The Japanese royal couple will not make a trip to Downing Street because of the general election campaign. State visits during a general campaign are unusual in the past. They have been rescheduled to avoid a clash with political campaigning. Prime Minister Sunak and Labour leader Keir Starmer will be at the banquet on Tuesday evening in one of the last such formal occasions before next week's election. Tomorrow night, the two-party leaders will take part in a head-to-head TV debate. Francis Udojo, NTA News.
A plane carrying Julian Assange has departed Bangkok and route through Serbian in the Northern Mariana Island in the Pacific after refueling to enter a plea deal with the U.S. government that will free him and resolve the legal case over the publication of the trove of classified documents. Francis Udojo again reports that Assange was released Monday from a high-security British prison where he had been held for 5 years while he fought extradition to the United States, which sought to prosecute him for revealing military secrets.
Assange flew out of London to travel to the Northern Mariana Islands, a U.S. territory in the Pacific, where he will plead guilty to a single count of conspiracy to obtain and disseminate national defense information, according to a court document. A charter plane carrying the 52-year-old landed in Bangkok on Tuesday for a scheduled refueling stop. From there, it was scheduled to fly to Saipan, capital of the U.S. territory, where Assange is due in court on Wednesday morning. He is expected to be sentenced to 5 years and 2 months in prison, with credit for the same amount of time spent behind bars in Britain. Assange's wife said he would be a free man after the judge signs off on the deal, thanking supporters who have campaigned for years for his release. Under the deal, Assange is due to return to Australia, where the government said his case had dragged on for too long and there was nothing to be gained by his continued incarceration. Francis Udojo, NTA News.
Back in Africa, the trip by Congolese President Denis Sassou Nguesso comes less than a month after Russia's Foreign Affairs Minister Sergei Lavrov made a stop in the Central African country. Sassou Nguesso is expected to meet with his Russia counterpart, Vladimir Putin. The two leaders will hold discussions on the economy, trade, energy, as well as security cooperation. This is Sassou Nguesso's second trip to Russia in less than a year. Last July, he traveled to St. Petersburg to attend the Russia-Africa Summit. Brazzaville is one of Moscow's strongest allies in Africa. Russia companies maintain a presence in the country's soil, mining and military sector. Russia has worked to bolster ties with African countries in a bid to counter Western sanctions and isolation over the war in Ukraine. Most African nations have adopted a neutral stance on the conflict, calling instead for a ceasefire and peace talks. And in Nigeria, President Bola Tinubu's administration's commitment to free and responsible journalism through access to accurate information, regular media briefings and training opportunities was reiterated by the Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris. This was at a training workshop for the media organized by the National Counter-Terrorism Center, Office of the National Security Advisor. Salio Guanara reports.
Although members of the pen profession do not have the power to shoot a gun in the fight against terrorism, they control the pen whose power is mightier than that of the sword. This is to update members of the media, particularly defense correspondents, of the dynamics and strategic roles they are expected to perform in sustaining the battle against terrorism. Minister of Information and National Orientation Mohammed Idris joined in the advocacy and encouraged the media to use data and research to authenticate their reports and avoid sensationalism.
Without propaganda, terrorism will not thrive. And at all times, a terrorist will always want to be in the news. So it is the responsibility of all of us as media practitioners to know the kind of news coverage that you give them. I have said it times without number that it is often not helpful when on the front pages of our newspapers you find pictures of terrorists with AK-47 across their shoulder and portraying them as if they are actually heroes. They are not. These are enemies of our land and we should treat them as such. So this kind of engagements, Jaralaka and other distinguished guests here, please deepen it in the interest of the fight against terrorism.
Journalists not only set agenda, but mold opinions because the media also function as a conviction instrument which can be used to thwart counterproductive activities.
We are hopeful that the workshop will allow for honest dialogue that will generate useful ideas to improved strategies of reporting to enhance peace and security in Nigeria.
With the theme, Effective Reporting Towards Strengthening Alternatives to Terrorist Ideologies, Contemporary Security Challenges, the defense correspondents are expected to cross-fertilize ideas with relevant stakeholders as part of efforts in fighting terrorism using the non-kinetic approach. In Abuja, Salio Guanara, NTA News.
The House of Representatives has made a case for a steady power supply to Cheddar Science and Technology Complex in Kwale Federal Capital Territory to support technological innovation of the country. This was during an oversight visit by House Committee on Science and Engineering to the complex. National Assembly correspondent Muhammad Rabiu Ali reports.
This is one among many hubs of science and engineering in Nigeria that are set to bring innovation and compete favorably with other developed nations. Lack of steady electricity supply and inadequate funding, among other impediments, affect productivity and the morale of staff. The visit by the House Committee on Science Engineering provides an opportunity to have first-hand information on challenges and what the management presented during the 2023 budget defense.
From 1989 93, when everything was set to now taking off, there was only one structure in Shesco. Up to 2009, all the centers in Shesco we are using one block, and some of the laboratories we are using only one room. And at the end of the day, you found out nothing was happening.
Unless we come back to the drawing board, make our research institutes very, very effective, very, very competitive, well accommodated in our budget, well accommodated in engagement, exposed to other international best practices.
The committee assured to provide the necessary support not only to shared science engineering but to the sector in general. In Abuja, Muhammad Rabiu Ali, NTA News.
Still staying with the National Assembly, the House of Representatives is set to resume the second session of the 10th Assembly on Thursday, June 27, 2024. Spokesman of the House, Akin Rotimi, in a statement says the Green Chamber has also slated its inaugural legislative open week for Wednesday, 3rd July to Friday, 5th of July, 2024. The open week is aimed at fostering an open parliament and promoting citizens' engagement in legislative and governance processes. President Bola Tinubu will be special guest of honor for the legislative open week, while all Nigerians are expected to participate. It will be recalled that the House adjourned sittings on June 11, 2024 at the end of its first year to enable members celebrate the Eid al-Kabir festivities with their constituents. NTA International, stay ahead for more reports.
Tuberculosis, popularly known as TB, is an airborne disease that can be contacted by anybody regardless of age, tribe, and socioeconomic status. Despite availability of new testing equipment for TB, diagnosing TB in children is still more difficult than in adults. During the National Childhood TB Testing Week that will be taking place across the country, healthcare workers from the national and state TB programs, with support of various partners, will visit our communities to create more awareness and conduct screening and testing for TB among children. TB is treatable and curable only if detected early. Every child's life matters. Let us join hands together and end TB among our children and in Nigeria. Thank you. God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Global Alliance will be making a case for the inclusion of responsible communication in line with the 18th goal of the Sustainable Development Goals, given its importance. President of the Alliance, Professor Justin Green, disclosed this on the leadership of the Nigerian Institute of Public Relations at a luncheon in his honor. Haman Chabani reports.
The luncheon put together by the President, Nigerian Institute of Public Relations, NTA, in honor of the President of the Global Alliance, Professor Justin Green, provided public relations experts an opportunity to interact in a more relaxed atmosphere. Aside that, some important issues discussed were the strengthening of the relationship between the Global Alliance and the NIPR, as both parties agreed to collaborate and support each other in any way possible.
The Nigerian Institute of Public Relations desires to work very closely with Global Alliance. That's why we came to you and requested that you support us to establish the Public Relations and Leadership Academy in September 2024, leading to the establishment of Public Relations and Leadership University in September 2026.
We're going to be there for them. We're going to be there every day of the year, 365, because our role is to assist them in every way possible to ensure that responsible communication, ethical communication, is at the top of everyone's hit list.
Professor Green said knowing the essence of adopting responsible communication the world over is crucial as is all that people do, act or say. He informed his hosts of making a request at the UN General Assembly to add responsible communication as the 18th goal of the Sustainable Development.
And everyone has a responsibility to ensure responsible communication is not just run by an institute or promoted by a public relations institute. It has to be ingrained in the whole body of government, political systems right around the world. And I think what I've seen here today, Nigeria and NIPR are certainly setting the main steps forward during that.
Since you came, you have seen Nigeria. The impression we're talking about is beginning to change from whatever you might have heard about Nigeria. This is Nigeria, not what people write out about. So you are going to see it yourself firsthand.
I want to extend my advocacy that it's something that you also look at on a broader scale. How to help your practitioners, particularly build capacity, to address those issues and to play a greater role in national development.
Professor Justin Green is in Nigeria for the Diamond Ceremony celebration of the Nigerian Institute of Public Relations. Hamman Jabani, NTA News.
Now, vulnerable Nigerians botched from birth or due to life-threatening incidences needing life-changing surgeries have been supported financially for the various surgeries. Elizabeth Amori reports that it was a joyous moment for the beneficiaries as they received their checks.
Raise your hands together and say one Lord.
It isn't just a day of joy, but a day to heave a sigh of relief as they receive financial assistance to cater to the medical needs before them. Mirabel, who has a baby needing chemotherapy, says this gesture has taken a huge burden from her.
I just want to say thank you, that God should provide more and more for them.
We can't leave the nation for government alone to participate and pick up people. If we assist, I think the nation will be a great nation.
This is an opportunity to say thank you to God, to be able to reach out to those who require needs and those of us who can afford to support them. This is the time to say, God, you have blessed us, and let's give back to the society.
Skin grafting and heart repair are part of surgeries paid for. Nuhu Kwajafa is the national coordinator of the Global Peace Initiative for Love and Care. He says gestures as these give hope to those who are financially unstable with medical challenges.
We can't just put our hand on one person. If we all put our hands together, we will save humanity.
Donors at the event called on government to subsidize medical services, and the financially buoyant should complement by making giving a lifestyle. In Abuja, Elizabeth Omori, NTA News.
President Bola Tinubu congratulates the governor of Lagos State, Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu, on his birthday. Governor Sanwo-Olu had a successful career in the private sector before joining the public service, scaling the leadership ladder. In a statement signed by the special advisor to the president and publicity Ajiri Ngilali, the president prays for many more years in good health for the governor and wishes him more wisdom and energy in his service to Lagos State and the nation. And now the clamor for continuous advocacy to sensitize the populace against the dangers associated with drug abuse and illicit trafficking resonates louder as 400 million of world population are grappling with drug-related disorders. The role of the Nigerian Television Authority in living up to its corporate social responsibility in sensitizing Nigerians has not gone unnoticed, as the National Youth for Women Empowerment and Education of Nigeria honors the Director General of NTA as part of activities marking International Day Against Drug Abuse and Illicit Trafficking in Abuja. Ngozi Technique reports.
With about 40% of Nigerian youths set to be involved in one form of drug abuse or the other, and 3 in every 4 drug abusers are found to be women, The call to intensify awareness to rid the society of the menace becomes more imperative. With recognition such as this for the DG of NTA, who is represented by the Director News, NTA International, the group believes will motivate stakeholders to do more in the fight against drug abuse in Nigeria.
The Nigerian Television Authority, as the largest TV network in Africa, is going to use all its platforms to spread the message against drug abuse in the society. We will produce jingles, we will have discussion programs.
It is important to note that this issue of drug abuse among women in Nigeria adds a layer of complicity to the overall empowerment efforts.
It contributes to the breakdown of social fabrics of the society.
From different perspectives, speakers harp on the need for the family institution, government, corporate bodies to synergize in curbing drug abuse, especially among the female folk. Hence, the call for women empowerment.
We want a situation that after we have trained you, we have rehabilitated you, we should usher you into empowerment, skills acquisition. Because an idle man is a devil's workshop.
The theme is Women and Drug Abuse in Nigeria, Education and Empowerment as Panacea for the Social Menace. Ngozi Technical, NTA News.
The presidential candidate of the Labour Party in the 2023 general election, Mr. Peter Obi, has pledged to step up action to resolve the leadership crisis rocking the party. He spoke with journalists when members of the National Transition Committee set up by the NLC attempted gaining entrance into the secretariat. David Ire reports.
It was a rowdy situation at the party secretariat. Neither the transition committee members nor journalists were allowed into the premises. The transition committee, headed by former NLC president Abdul Wahid Umar, is insisting that the tenure of Julius Abure-led NWC elapsed on the 10th of June, as they are not recognizing the March convention that renewed the tenure of Julius Abure as national chairman.
When his tenure expired, he begged NLC and other stakeholders that let them allow him to extend his tenure by 1 year so that he will go through the presidential election. He now begged, and it was also INEC that brokered an agreement where he signed, Abure signed, and NLC signed that they will now work together to conduct an all-inclusive and expansive congresses that will culminate into convention.
Addressing the committee members after meeting with the NWC, Mr. Peter Obi called on both parties to sheathe their swords with a pledge to resolve the issue soonest.
The meeting today was convened at my instance. And if you were inside that meeting, I preached only one thing, that I have come to start the work of reconciling the family. So these people who are outside are members of the family who we must reconcile with. We must all sit down in the table and decide the future of our family.
Presently, who is the chairman of the party?
Only INEC knows.
That's where we end the news. Many thanks for being part of it. Hi, I'm Charles Alpha.